Rain hammered against the windows of the luxury downtown hotel as the city's wealthiest businessmen and social elites gathered beneath crystal chandeliers for the annual charity gala. Valets rushed through puddles carrying umbrellas over designer gowns and polished shoes, but at the edge of the glowing entrance stood a faded, rust-covered 1967 Mustang that looked like it had barely survived another winter. Its paint was peeling. One headlight flickered weakly. The hood carried dents nobody had bothered to fix. And beside it stood a tired single father in worn work boots, holding the hand of his little daughter while trying to ignore the stares. Then came the laughter. Victoria Callaway, the powerful CEO of the city's largest automotive company, stepped out of a sleek black luxury car and stopped cold when she saw the broken Mustang. Her sharp green eyes scanned the rusted vehicle before a mocking smile spread across her face. Cameras flashed as she laughed quietly and made a cruel remark loud enough for nearby guests to hear. A few wealthy guests chuckled beside her. Others exchanged uncomfortable glances. But nobody realized in that moment that 30 days later, that same broken Mustang would drive through the center of the city surrounded by cheering crowds, television helicopters, crying strangers, and standing ovations, while Victoria Callaway stood frozen in complete disbelief. If you believe kindness matters more than status, and that second chances can transform lives, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to EverKind Stories. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the people the world humiliates are the ones carrying the strongest hearts. Daniel Harper had never planned to attend the gala. Men like him did not belong in luxury hotels surrounded by millionaires. He spent most of his life beneath broken engines at a small repair garage on the edge of town, coming home exhausted with grease beneath his fingernails and unpaid bills waiting on the kitchen table. Since his wife Emily passed away from cancer 3 years earlier, life had become an endless cycle of overtime shifts, sleepless nights, and trying to raise his 8-year-old daughter Lily alone. The Mustang was the only thing Emily left behind. It had once belonged to her father, restored lovingly over decades before hardship slowly destroyed it. After Emily died, Daniel promised Lily he would never sell the car, no matter how difficult life became. That promise cost him more than anyone knew. Some months he skipped meals to afford repairs. Some nights he sat alone in the garage staring at the Mustang while memories crushed his chest. He could still picture Emily laughing in the passenger seat during long countryside drives before illness slowly stole the light from her eyes. The invitation to the gala came through Lily's school after she won a citywide essay contest about hope. Daniel wanted to decline immediately because he knew they would not fit in among wealthy guests, but Lily begged him to go. She wanted to wear the blue dress her mother once bought for a special occasion. She wanted one evening where life felt beautiful again. So Daniel cleaned the Mustang the best he could. But no amount of polishing could hide the rust. When Victoria Callaway mocked the car outside the hotel entrance, Daniel felt humiliation burning through him like fire. Victoria was admired across the city as a brilliant businesswoman who built a billion-dollar automotive empire. Magazine covers called her unstoppable. News interviews praised her intelligence and ambition. Yet beneath the glamorous image was someone who had forgotten how to see dignity in ordinary people. Lily heard the laughter too. Daniel felt her tiny hand tighten around his fingers as nearby guests whispered. Her eyes lowered toward the wet pavement. In that moment, Daniel did not feel anger. He felt heartbreak. The unbearable pain of watching his daughter feel ashamed of the only remaining piece of her mother. Inside the ballroom, the humiliation continued quietly. Wealthy guests avoided sitting near them. Some assumed Daniel was part of the catering staff. Others stared at Lily's modest clothes before looking away politely. Daniel tried focusing only on his daughter's happiness as she admired the giant chandeliers and floral decorations, but every time he looked across the room, he saw Victoria Callaway watching them with quiet judgment. Then Lily walked onto the stage. Her small hands trembled as she unfolded her speech and stood before hundreds of strangers. The giant ballroom fell silent. She spoke softly about losing her mother. About watching her father work late every night yet still helping struggling neighbors repair their cars for free when they could not afford mechanics. She described the old Mustang sitting in their garage like a memory refusing to disappear. Then her voice cracked as she read the final line of her essay. "My dad says broken things still deserve love." Silence spread through the ballroom. Nobody laughed anymore. Even Victoria's expression changed slightly as she stared at the little girl standing alone beneath the spotlight. For a brief moment, the room remembered what humanity felt like. But after the gala ended, reality returned quickly. Daniel went back to long work shifts. Bills continued piling up. The landlord threatened eviction. Lily's school called about unpaid lunch fees. Then one cold evening, smoke suddenly poured from beneath the Mustang's hood while Daniel drove home with Lily in the passenger seat. The engine died completely. Lily cried quietly while Daniel pushed the car home through freezing streets under cloudy skies. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Daniel sat alone inside the garage staring at the silent Mustang. For the first time, he considered selling it. Not because he wanted to, but because survival was becoming impossible. The world rewarded power and wealth. People like Victoria always won. Kindness did not pay rent. Then Daniel discovered something hidden inside the glove compartment. An old envelope with Emily's handwriting. Inside was a faded photograph showing Emily beside the Mustang years earlier during its first restoration. Written on the back were simple words. "One day this car will remind people who we really are." Daniel stared at the sentence for hours. The next morning, something inside him changed. Instead of selling the Mustang, he decided to rebuild it. Not for revenge. Not for pride. For Lily. Every evening after work, Daniel stayed awake deep into the night sanding rust, rebuilding parts, searching junkyards for affordable replacements, and slowly bringing the dead Mustang back to life. His hands bled constantly. His shoulders ached. Sometimes exhaustion nearly made him collapse onto the garage floor. But piece by piece, the broken car began breathing again. Neighbors started noticing. An elderly retired mechanic offered free spare parts after hearing Daniel's story. A teenage car enthusiast volunteered to help repaint the body. A widow from down the street brought warm homemade meals because she remembered raising children alone after losing her husband years earlier. Slowly, strangers became family. Lily helped every evening after finishing homework. She handed her father tools, polished chrome pieces carefully with tiny hands, and taped her mother's old photograph gently inside the dashboard. For the first time since Emily's death, laughter returned to the garage. Then someone posted photos of the restoration online. The city became obsessed with the story. Thousands of people followed Daniel's journey rebuilding the Mustang connected to his late wife's memory. Messages flooded social media from strangers sharing their own stories of grief, struggle, and hope. Donations of parts arrived anonymously. Local mechanics volunteered labor for free. Meanwhile, Victoria Calloway barely paid attention. Her company was facing growing criticism after reports surfaced about harsh layoffs and poor treatment of workers. Public opinion slowly turned colder toward her polished corporate image. Yet she remained convinced that success guaranteed admiration. Then came day 30. The city's annual Founders Parade filled downtown streets with crowds and media crews. At the last moment, organizers invited Daniel and Lily to participate after their story inspired thousands online. Daniel almost refused because he hated attention. But Lily smiled and whispered softly, "Mom would want people to see it." So they went. As the fully restored midnight blue 1967 Mustang rolled onto Main Street, the entire city seemed to stop breathing. The transformation was unbelievable. The deep blue paint gleamed beneath the cloudy daytime sky. Chrome sparkled brightly. The engine roared with powerful life. Yet the most emotional detail remained untouched: Emily's small photograph resting gently inside the dashboard. Crowds lined both sides of the streets. Then something extraordinary happened. People began standing. Applause spread across block after block like a wave. Strangers cried openly while cheering for the Mustang. Some held signs reading, "Broken doesn't mean worthless." Others shouted Daniel and Lily's names through tears. News helicopters circled overhead while cameras captured the emotional moment from every angle. Daniel gripped the steering wheel tightly as emotion overwhelmed him. Beside him, Lily waved through tears while smiling brighter than she had in years. And standing near the VIP platform downtown was Victoria Calloway, watching silently. The same woman who mocked the broken Mustang 30 days earlier now stared as the entire city celebrated it. But the real shock came moments later. Parade organizers announced Daniel Harper as the recipient of the city's Community Heart Award for inspiring compassion, unity, and hope across the city. The announcer described how one struggling father reminded thousands of people that dignity has nothing to do with wealth. Cameras immediately turned toward Victoria. For the first time in years, her expensive image could not command admiration. The city was no longer looking at power. It was looking at humanity. That evening, Daniel's story flooded television channels nationwide. Donations poured into charity supporting single parents and grieving families. Restoration shops offered him jobs. Wealthy collectors offered enormous sums to purchase the Mustang. Daniel refused every offer. Because the car was never about money. Weeks later, Victoria Calloway quietly visited Daniel's repair shop alone. No cameras. No reporters. No assistants. People expected tension. Instead, Victoria stood silently beside the Mustang for a long time before finally admitting something painful. Years earlier, her own father had owned a classic Mustang before poverty destroyed their family. Seeing Daniel protect something sentimental despite hardship awakened bitterness she buried long ago. She had spent decades building power because she feared ever feeling powerless again. Daniel listened quietly. Not because her cruelty was acceptable, but because pain often hides behind arrogance in ways the world never sees. Before leaving, Victoria handed Daniel an envelope containing funding for a scholarship in Emily's name dedicated to children who had lost parents. Daniel nearly refused. But Lily smiled softly and whispered, "Maybe people can change." And maybe they can. Years later, people still remembered the parade where a broken Mustang united an entire city. Not because of the car itself, but because it reminded everyone watching that life damages all of us. Some wounds never fully heal. Some losses stay forever. But broken things are not worthless. Sometimes they carry the deepest love. Sometimes the people struggling silently are fighting the hardest battles. And sometimes the world laughs at someone right before witnessing their greatest triumph. If this story touched your heart even a little, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to EverKind Stories. Your support helps keep stories of hope, kindness, and second chances alive for people who may need them most. Because somewhere tonight, someone feels broken, and they need to remember that broken does not mean finished.
If you believe in kindness, kindly please subscribe my channel and press the bell icon to get all the notifications. If you like this story, so write a comment below and share with this your friends. Thank you so much for watching.